The internet, it's everything, right? We use it every single day. But have you ever stopped to think about how this whole thing was actually built? I mean, where did it even come from?
Okay, so to really get the internet, you've got to forget about TikTok and Netflix for a second. Its story actually starts with a much more serious problem. Think Cold War. The big question was, how do we keep our communications up and running even if the absolute worst happens?
And the solution they came up with? Honestly, it was brilliant. It was called ARPANET, a project from the U.S. Department of Defense. And its whole design was built around one single idea: resilience. The thinking was, if one part of the network gets knocked out in an attack, who cares? The messages will just find another way to get through. No central point of failure. It's a total game changer.
But here's the thing. Even back then, in those early military days, some people were already seeing a much, much bigger picture. There was this computer scientist, J.C.R. Licklider, who had this vision. He imagined a future where computers all over the world were connected. And that idea, that was the seed that basically grew into everything we have today.
All right, so we've got the big idea, the blueprint. But how did they actually make it work? Let's dive into the core tech, the stuff that's pretty much invisible to us, but forms the absolute bedrock of the internet.
So the first huge breakthrough was this revolutionary idea called packet switching. See, before this, if you wanted to send information, you needed a dedicated, continuous connection, kind of like an old-school phone call. But this new method, totally different. It basically chopped up all the information into these tiny, independent pieces called packets.
Here's a great way to think about it. Imagine you want to mail a book to a friend. Instead of sending the whole book in one box, you tear out every single page and mail each one as a separate postcard. They all get sent at once, take whatever route is fastest, and when they arrive, your friend just puts them back in the right order. It's an unbelievably efficient and super robust system. Okay, but all those little packets flying around are useless if the computers on each end can't understand each other, right? They needed a common language, and that's where TCP/IP comes in. It was co-invented by Vince Cerf and Bob Kahn, and what it did was create one universal set of rules, a kind of digital Esperanto, so that any computer could talk to any other computer.
Now, you might think TCP/IP was the only game in town, but it wasn't. The big phone companies had their own system called X.25. But here's the crucial difference, the thing that changed everything. TCP/IP was open. It was free. Anyone could use it, build on it, play with it. And that one decision, to be open instead of closed and proprietary, that's why it won. That's why we have one single global internet today.
Okay, so the technical foundation is set. We've got the engine. But how did this thing escape the lab? How did a private military project end up in the hands of university researchers? And then, eventually, in all of our homes?
Yeah, as you can probably guess, this did not happen overnight. It was a really slow, deliberate process. Throughout the 80s, the network grew from just a few computers to connecting a bunch of universities. But the real explosion, that happened in the 90s. And it happened because of one critical decision. They finally allowed commercial traffic on the network. The doors were thrown open.
And that's when companies we all remember, like AOL and Prodigy, just jumped right in. Suddenly, for the very first time, you didn't have to be a researcher at a university to get online. You could actually connect from your home PC using your regular old phone line. And of course, listening to that unforgettable dial-up modem sound.
So the network is public. That's great. But it wasn't exactly friendly, you know? It was mostly just text on a black screen, super hard to navigate. That all changed, though, thanks to a completely revolutionary invention that was built right on top of the internet.
This is a super common mix-up, by the way. People use internet and web like they're the same thing, but they're not. The easiest way to get it is this. Think of the internet as the infrastructure. It's the roads, the plumbing, the wires. The World Wide Web, that's all the stuff built on the roads. The buildings, the signs, the websites, the stuff we actually use.
And the web was the brainchild of one guy, Tim Berners-Lee. Back in 1989, he came up with the three core pieces of the puzzle. You've got HTML, which is the language for the pages themselves. You've got HTTP, the protocol to move them around. And you've got URLs to give every single thing a unique address. Those three things together created the whole system of clicking on links to jump between documents that we, do a billion times a day.
But there was still one more piece to the puzzle, making it all look good. I mean, the first web browsers were just text. That's it. Then, this browser called Mosaic came along, and later, the famous Netscape Navigator. And what they did was add a graphical interface. Suddenly, you could see pictures. You could just point your mouse and click on a link. This right here is what made the web go mainstream. It made it accessible and, frankly, appealing to millions of regular people.
Of course, a pretty interface doesn't mean much if you're waiting 5 minutes for a single picture to load, right? So the next huge leap was all about speed. We went from that agonizing crawl of dial-up to always-on broadband and then to the ridiculously fast fiber optics we have today. And that incredible jump in speed, in bandwidth, that's the only reason things like YouTube and Netflix can even exist.
All right, so that brings us to the final massive leap. This is how the internet broke free from our desks, cut the cord for good, and ended up, well, everywhere, in our pockets. To really appreciate this mobile revolution, you have to see where computing started. I'm talking about machines like the UNIVAC I. This thing was an absolute monster. It weighed over 16,000 pounds. It filled a whole room. Back then, access to computing power was incredibly rare, and it definitely wasn't going anywhere.
Now, just look at the contrast. When the iPhone came out in 2007, it wasn't just a new phone. No way! It was the moment a powerful computer and a high-speed internet connection all converged into a single device that could fit in your hand. Technology had gotten so small, so powerful, that the internet finally became truly personal and truly portable.
And what was the one technology that cut that final cord? Wi-Fi. It's what finally untethered our laptops, our phones, our tablets from the wall. It's what created that seamless, mobile internet experience that we now just expect. We take it for granted. In our homes, in coffee shops, everywhere.
And the result of this whole incredible journey? It's the world we're living in right now. It's not just about computers and phones anymore, is it? Today it's our watches, it's our cars, it's even our refrigerators. The whole Internet of Things thing? It's not science fiction, it's reality. And all of these zillions of devices are all speaking that same universal language, TCP/IP, that was born way back in the 1960s. How cool is that?
So think about it. We went from a secret military project designed to survive a catastrophe to a global nervous system that connects billions of us. The story of the internet has always been about building. It's been one of relentless building, which leaves us with just one question, really. What are we going to build next?